Hello everyone, 3M VTA back again. I am your host, Big Jake. Welcome to the channel. Today we are going to take an in-depth look at Overlord. Now, if you watched my last video, you know this was on the list of 10 anime that really surprised me by how good it was. So I decided I wanted to take a more in-depth look at it for you guys from my perspective, and yeah, so that's what we're going to do. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy. And as usual, I do not own the rights to any of these properties. All images, names, and so forth are used for review purposes only and are owned by their respective owners. So let's go ahead and get into this, shall we? First, we get an info page here. I'm just going to kind of glass over this a little bit because I mentioned a lot of this in the last video. But 3 seasons, 39 episodes. There has been a 4th season announced, but it's already been delayed twice because of COVID. But right now, the new release is set for early 2022, like springtime-ish. So, be something for us all to look forward to. I know I'm very much so looking forward to it. So, and yeah, and as far as what kind of anime I consider this, I put up here, you know, it's a dark comedy, a sword and sorcery anime, a harem anime, and an isekai anime. And I still maintain the fact that it is a type of harem anime, even though it doesn't focus on the romantic relationships between the main character and the surrounding characters. It is still a main character surrounded by characters who unrecordedly love him. So, just saying, it's not your typical harem anime, but I still consider it one. Alright, so next we have the plot. Now, I didn't write anything on here because I just figured it'd be easier for me to just go ahead and explain the plot as opposed to type it all out, you know? But, yeah, so it is an isekai anime, so that is an anime where a character is either in a video game or stuck in it. And, yeah, this is the case. Our main character gets stuck. He's a longtime player of a game called Yggdrasil, which is a DMMO RPG, and so he falls asleep while waiting for the servers to shut down, and when he wakes up, he's stuck in the game. And so the whole anime revolves around him adjusting to him being the character he created and living in this new world and furthering the cause that him and his friends built as far as part of the guild of the Tomb of Nazarique. So, and yeah, that's pretty much the plot. Everything else we'll go into some more details as we go along here, but yeah, that's the basic idea. So, first up, we're going to go ahead and talk about the main character, Eins, who also is Momon in the anime, and his human name is Satoru Suzuki, although I don't think they ever actually mention it in the anime. At least I haven't heard it. But yeah, he is the main character. He, as far as Momon goes, he disguises himself as a warrior adventurer named Momon. Like I have up here, it's basically just he wants to get a better sense of what's going on in this new world, as well as spread the notoriety of the Tomb of Nazarique, and to earn money for things that they need, because unfortunately all of their gold is useless because it's from Yggdrasil. He was the guild leader before everything shut down and before all the other members quit, and he is an amazing magic user, unbelievable knowledge of spells. I mean, it's just crazy how powerful he is as far as his magic ability goes. And he even has artifacts to help him, like all of his rings on his hand that you see from time to time all have some kind of purpose. There's even one that specifically keeps people from reading how much how powerful his magic is. So, but yeah, and in all reality, he is a great protagonist, and I would compare him to, he's a Dr. Doom type character, because he's not necessarily inherently evil, but he does do evil things, but as he sees it, for the greater good of himself and the people he takes care of, the people, or should I say the creatures, because technically none of them are human, in the Great Tomb of Nazarique. And much like Doctor Doom, who rules his country with an iron fist, he pretty much does the same thing, although he's not as quick to like punish his own people. But just like Doctor Doom, he takes care of them. They basically want for nothing as long as they devote themselves to him. And he feels like he should spread this all across the world. So there you have it. All right, next we're going to get into some more characters here. These are Albedo and the Floor Guardians. They are amongst the more main characters of the story other than Eins. You have Albedo, who is a succubus. Oh, and by the way, all the pictures down there are in order from what I have them listed, so that way you know who I'm talking about. But Albedo is a succubus. She is the leader of the Floor Guardians. And reading some other things, because they don't outright mention this in the anime, even though she's extremely strong, she is not the strongest guardian, even by physical standards. But it's her ability to maintain order amongst the guardians, to administrate, to keep everybody in line, to keep everything moving, keep everything flowing. That's why she's the leader of the Floor Guardians. Next, you have Shaltir Bloodfallen, who is a vampire. She's the guardian of the first, second, and third floors of Nazarique. She is debatably the strongest floor guardian, period. She's a very skilled magic user, but she's also an extremely skilled fighter, and I call it the Bloody Valkyrie armor. I don't know if that's what it's actually called, but I call it that because, yeah. And her and Albedo always have a back and forth because they're both actually in love with Lord Eins, and so they're always basically talking crap to each other, trying to earn his affection and his attention away from the other. So next we have Gargantua, who is a siege golem. He's only appeared once in the anime, and that's when Lord Eins is confronting the Lizardmen. He's the giant creature that throws the great big huge cube out in front of the Lizardmen. Cochitis, who is a warrior type character, guardian of the fifth floor. He's an amazing fighter and fight tactician. He also uses ice magic, and he uses several weapons. In the show, we only ever see him use the axe and a sword, but those are not his only weapons. Next up, we have the twin dark elves, Aura and Mari Bellafiora, guardians of the sixth floor. In this world, elves, like, it's not unusual for elves to have a long life, but they age physically slower than what they are. Like, for example, they're both 76 years old, but they're still probably, like, if they were human, they'd probably be somewhere around, I'd say 10 to 12 years old is what I get from them. You have Aura, who is the more brazen one, the more fun-loving one, the outspoken one, and then you got Mare, who is the more reserved and quiet one. And the funny thing is, they're both trans, and by trans I mean they're both transvestites, and they don't actually know why that they're transvestites. But this gets addressed in I believe it's episode 2 or 3 of the first season, and basically Demiurge asked Mare why he dresses like a girl, and he said, I don't know, my creator said I was a cross-dresser, maybe it helps me cast my magic spells. So it's just, to me, that I just thought that was really funny, that they don't actually know why that they do that. They just do that because their creators made them that way. Next we have Demiurge, who is the demon guardian of the seventh floor. Very skilled magic user and fairly skilled combatant, but he's most noted for his mind and his tactics. He's the one that creates several plans that he thinks that Lord Eins is already putting in motion, but of course, being human on the inside, our main character hasn't necessarily plotted out everything. So a lot of the times the plans that are put forward are actually Demiurge's plans, but he just assumed that Lord Eins came up with it first. Next we have Victim. He's only in the anime a few times, and like I said, he's literally like this weird angel fetus looking thing. He's the guardian of the 8th floor, and as far as I can tell, most of the reason why he was created was because there's some certain spells that require a sacrifice, and he is used over and over again. But apparently, that's just part of his character. He's used over and over again as a sacrifice, but he always comes back. So, and then next we have Pandora's Actor. Pandora's Actor is not technically a floor guardian, but in the anime, he's the guardian of the treasury, and he handles the finances. Now, what I've read online, though, as far as like in the novels, for sure the novels and maybe the manga, he's also he's basically responsible for keeping Nazarique clean and neat, making sure everything's kept up. But I actually kind of like him better in the anime as the treasury guardian, guardian of the magic items, because I don't know, it just seems more important for a character like this, because he's also, like it says on here, like I put on here for you guys, he's designed also, if ever the need arises, to replace any of the floor guardians. So, moving on. Sebas and the Pleiades Battle Maids. Sebas is the head butler and personal butler to Lord Eins. Also, possibly the most powerful character other than Eins himself. In the anime, Sebas actually at one point flat out says that there are only 41 others stronger than him, and only one of them is left, when he's referring to Lord Eins. And when I looked this up online, apparently in his base form, he can defeat Cochitis, but not Albedo. But apparently Lord Eins is quoted as saying that in his true form, which he's actually a dragonoid, he can sweep over anyone. So it's possible that he's the strongest character beyond Lord Eins. Next we have the Pleiades Battle Maids. Yuri Alpha is their vice captain. She's a hand-to-hand combatant, and she uses martial arts. And when I say martial arts, I mean actual martial arts, as opposed to the special ability martial arts in the anime. And then we have Lupus Regina Beta, who is apparently a werewolf in human form, which I would have not known that had I not looked it up to see. But she's a healer, and she tends to exhibit psychopathic tendencies. But for the most part, she really looks real bubbly and all that. But on the inside, she's weird. And then we have Areola Gamma, who, once again, if I hadn't looked this up, I wouldn't have known. She's a shapeshifter that's permanently in human form, but she's an extremely skilled magic caster specializing in lightning spells. And that's why I believe that Lord Eins took her with him when he created the character Momon. He had Areola Gamma become his partner named Nabe. And I believe that's why, because she's such a skilled magic caster. So, and next we have CZ2128 Delta. She's apparently an automaton, and she uses like rifles and other rifles, guns, war knives, that kind of thing. Then there's Solution Epsilon, who is a slime, an assassin, and you actually get to see this in the anime where she actually absorbs somebody, and she's another one who exhibits the same kind of tendencies that Beta does, that there's something not right there, you know what I mean? And then there's Intima Vasilissa Zeta, who is an entomancer, and she is an insectoid, which we actually do get to see her in her actual insectoid form, which is pretty cool, because most of the characters in this show that have additional forms, we don't get to see that. And then there's Areola Omega, who, after Sebas was ordered to step down as the leader of the Pleiades Battle Maids, she was appointed the leader, and then Yuri Alpha was under her. So far, she's not seen in the anime, and I don't really know much about her, except for apparently she's considered the most human-looking, most human-like character in the Tomb of Nazarique, but she's not considered human because she's an immortal. Apparently, she is immortal. So, All right, up next, I got some important side characters here for you. And so we have Gazette Stronghold, who is the head warrior of the kingdom of Reestes and the king's personal bodyguard, strongest fighter in the Reestes kingdom. He encounters Eins pretty early on in the series. I believe it's episode 3 or 4, actually, of the entire series when he actually meets Eins. Then there's Brain Unglaus, who we don't meet till later on. He's an extremely skilled warrior, supposedly only second to Gazeth. We have Climb. Now, Climb is not so much important to the overall story. He's not actually a very important character, but his being there is important because of Princess Renair, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Then there's Infree Barrere. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his last name. He's a pharmacist and an asset to the village, Karn village, that Lord Eins visits in like I said, it's like the 3rd episode of the whole show. Lord Eins eventually has him stationed there to be of personal use to him. And then there's Henry Emmett, who is the girl who Lord Eins saves from the slain Theocracy warriors, and she eventually becomes chief of Karn Village, and she is an important asset to him because she keeps Enfria there in Karn Village because of his love for her. And then you have Jerknev Rune Farlord Elnix, who is the emperor of the Baharuth Empire, nicknamed the Bloody Emperor, for killing a bunch of nobles and removing them from the kingdom. He eventually becomes an ally of Lord Eins, but according to the light novels, and I don't know, they might do this differently in the anime, according to the light novels, eventually basically just becomes Lord Eins' vassal because there's just nothing that he can do to stop him. We have Fluter Paradine, who is the head wizard of the Baharuth Empire. Before Eins appears, he is thought to basically have been the strongest wizard, period. And he's obsessed with magic to the point where he betrays his emperor for the right to have magic knowledge taught to him by Lord Eins. And then Princess Renair, she is the princess of the Reestes kingdom. She's in love with Climb, wants to be with Climb, but can't because she's a noble and he's a commoner. And she is actually a complete psychopath. She's put, and this is seen in the anime, which is awesome, by the way. She puts on a happy, bubbly front, but hides her true tendencies. And when you see them, you just see these eyes and the facial expressions that she makes, and it's just they're creepy. Like, I love the way they did it. And it's to the point where it's, yeah. And at one point, I know her and Demiurge, they don't actually show the meeting, but they do meet and talk, and Demiurge mentions this later. And basically, she helps Demiurge with the plan to attack the kingdom and kidnap all those people for experimentation and all that, all because of Climb. She wants to make sure that it's a distraction to possibly get Climb injured to the point where she has to take care of him. Like, she's on that level of psychopath. It's weird. Then you have Tuare Nina Veyron. She's a woman that's saved by Sebas and taken in by Lord Eins later in season 2, which we'll get into some of those moments. But basically, she's a prostitute that Sebas comes along and helps, and I'll talk about those moments here in a little while. Swords of Darkness. It's an adventurers group that Momon befriends early on in season 1. They're killed by Clementine. I didn't put her up here, and I really didn't put her picture up anywhere because I didn't know where else to put her at, to be honest with you. But she's an ex-Black Scripture, basically an ex-head warrior of the slain Theocracy, and she kills the entire group. And But the Swords of Darkness, Peter Mock is the leader. You got Lucret Volve, who is the ranger who's in love with Nabe. You got Nina, who is actually the younger sister of Tuare, trying to save her from the prostitution. And then you got Dying Woodwonder, who is the druid who uses like elemental magic and stuff. And yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. I actually really liked these characters, and I wish they would have survived a little bit longer than they did. But their story arc early on in season 1 is really good, and the climax of it's even better. Next, we have the Blue Roses. This is an adamantite level adventurers group, all female adventurers group, and which adamantite's the highest level an adventurer can get, basically the most powerful. Their presence is in season 2. They take there's a lot of screen time with them. They're involved in a lot of things that go on with, I mean, just everything. Their leader is Lachius. She's the leader. You got Gagarin, who is this giant, literally this giant woman who is a warrior. And yeah, I put up there. She always teases Klein about being a virgin, and it's actually really funny. Evil Eye is she's a vampire that nobody knows that she's a vampire. Formerly known as the Vampire Lord, she was even a companion of the 13 Heroes. Extremely skilled magic caster who ends up falling in love with Momon. And it's actually kind of funny when it happens, because they say that she says things like, "What's this feeling? This can't be. My heart hasn't beaten in several hundred years, and it has been a couple hundred years since my last crush." And it's just, I don't know, just the way they went about it is really funny, because she's an old vampire that's been around for hundreds of years. Then you got Tia and Tina. They're ninja rogue-like warriors who specialize in sneak attacks. The individuals is not so more important as the group as a whole. And when you watch the show, especially, like I said, and when you watch the show and in season 2, you'll see how they help move the plot along, and how they interact with the plans that Nazarique has for everything. Next, the Lizardman Alliance. Now, the Lizardmen were a group of, like it says, Lizardmen, who Lord Eins decides to subjugate as an experiment to learn how to control different races at one time. And the tribes that are involved in this are Green Claw, Red Eye, Dragon Tusk, Small Fang, and Razor Tail. You have Shasuru Shasha, who is the chief of Green Claw. His brother Zariusu, who is an outcast, or what they call a traveler, who wields one of the magic items of their kingdom called Frostpain, which is literally an ice sword that has like ice abilities. You have Crush Lulu, who is the acting chief of the Red Eye clan, who Zariusu quite literally immediately falls in love with when they meet. Zenburu Gugu, who's the chief of Dragon Tusk. He's a warrior type, but he uses shaman magic to help enhance his battle abilities. And fun fact about this guy, this character is voiced by the same guy who voices Mr. Satan in Dragon Ball Z. Like, the voice is just unmistakable. You just know it when you hear it. There's Sukiyu Juju, who's a Small Fang. He specializes in range weapons. And then Kayuku Zuzu, who's the chief of Razor Tail. He's more of a warrior type. They don't really give too much detail about those other two, and they get killed off pretty quickly. So, next, we have the Six Arms, who is the security for the organization Eight Fingers. They're all very powerful warriors, equal to some. I've seen them be compared to Adamantite class warriors or Mithril class warriors, so that's kind of up for debate. You have Zero, the battle demon. He's the leader, and his tattoo, he uses shaman magic tattoos to enhance his strength. You have Succulent, the phantom devil, who combines illusionary magic with his sword fighting skills. Davernok, the undead king, who's a third tier magic caster specializing in lightning and fire magic. Pashurian, the spatial slash. He basically uses high speed attacks with a special sword. which he calls Void Cutter. Malmist of the Thousand Kills, who is a swordsman who specializes in martial art lunging techniques. And then Edstrom, the dancing scimitar. She's actually, to me, her ability is the most interesting of all of them. She uses dance magic on weapons, usually swords or a scimitar, to make them move and act on their own. And as I put in here, they're all killed by Sebas, which we'll go into here in a little bit. And the last group of characters, as far as side characters that are important to certain story arcs, at least to me, is the group Foresight. Now, they're what they call workers, which is basically adventurers who don't work for the guild. So, and they're hired to come in and go through the tomb of Nazarique and bring back whatever they find. Unfortunately, it doesn't end well for them, as you can imagine. They're all killed by Lord Eins personally, except for Robert Ike Galtron. He's taken prisoner and experimented on. Although in the light novels, Arche is not killed, but she's enslaved by Shaltir Bloodfallen to be her sex slave. So that's fun, right? But you have Hecaron Termite, who is the leader and fighter class. Galtron, who is a cleric and divine magic caster. And then there's Arche Eb Ryle Furt, who is the standard magic caster for the group, and she also has a special ability to be able to tell what tier level of spell a magic caster can use. So, and then you have Emina, who is the half-elf rogue / ranger, and she also is Hecaron's lover. They I know Galtron even at one point talks about them getting married and all that stuff, and but it's not taken too seriously, which it shouldn't be because they're not in the show very long, but they have enough screen time where I felt like people should know about who they are and so forth. So okay, so after the characters, I wanted to go over some of my favorite moments from the show so far. So we have Eins inadvertently fondles Albedo extra long, and in the first episode, when he comes to the new world, he starts talking about how he can smell Albedo, like her perfume, and so he's, in his head, he's like, I wonder if I can touch her, so he touches her arm, and then, because anime, he decides to touch her breast. Well, he's literally sitting there touching her breasts, and meanwhile having an inner monologue, and then out of nowhere just stops and goes, oh, how long was I planning on fondling her? Because he didn't realize what he was doing, because he was thinking to himself. It's pretty funny. And then there's the Uncle Cochitis moment, which I actually missed. This is the fourth time I've watched the series all the way through, and I actually missed this line all three times, but when I heard it, I couldn't help but just laugh. And basically what it is all the floor guardians pledge themselves to Lord Eins, and then Demiurge says, well, it might be a great thing if we could pledge it like to a line, like an heir, as opposed to just him. That way, if something happens, we have someone else to serve. And then Cochitis says, that would be great. Amazing, in fact. And then he throws his hands up in the air in like a cheering motion and goes, I would be Uncle Cochitis. Like, it's just the way he says it and how excited he is about it that makes it a funny moment and a great moment for me. Then we have Eins kills the soldiers from the slain theocracy. This is pretty early on. I want to say it's episode 4 or 5 of the entire show. And basically, Gazette Stronghold is fighting off the slain theocracy soldiers in order to protect Karn Village. Well, Eins trades places with him and literally just wipes the floor with these people. It's the first actual battle that Eins is involved in the show. And it's pretty amazing. Like, watching him take care of these people and just basically toying with them is pretty awesome. Next, I have in here Eins' melancholy over his guildmates while he's with the Swords of Darkness. Now, the reason I chose this as a good moment is because this isn't an anime that has a lot of emotional moments to it. So when they are in there, they're done very well. And this is one of them. When they're all eating dinner after fighting off some goblins and ogres. You hear Lord Eins as Momon starts thinking about his former guildmates and even talks about them a little bit. And you just hear in his voice and the way they portray the scene of how sad he is that they're really gone, that he really misses his friends now that they're not here. Which, speaking of his guildmates, something else that he repeats more than once is or he thinks about more than once is the one guildmate Touch Me, who is the creator of Sebas, which is why Sebas has such a strong sense of justice. He always thinks about how Touch Me saved him, and yeah, and it's just things like that when they talk about his guildmates. So, and then we have Eins kills Clementine. This one was just poetic justice. Clementine killed his acquaintances, the Swords of Darkness, so in return, he toyed with her and showed her how powerless she really is compared to him and his group of people, quite literally crushing her to death to the point where she's flailing and trying to escape, breaking her own teeth and fingernails trying to escape, and he literally just snaps her in half. Next, we have Cochitis fights the Lizardmen, and this is when they try to subjugate the Lizardmen. Cochitis fails in the first battle attempt, so then as punishment, he had to fight them all by himself. So when he goes to fight them all by himself, first thing he does is he does a cold spell to take out their numbers, and then he fights the chieftains, which I had mentioned previously earlier on in the video. And he fights them on hand-on-hand combat, and I mean the thing is they never really stood a chance, but he praises them for the fact that they're not giving, even though they know they can't win, they won't give up, and they earn his respect, and therefore, because they earned his respect, he was able to keep them alive for Lord Eins, and so even though they're subjugated by him, their society thrives under his rule. Then we have Eins sees the Guardians bickering, and he's reminded of his former friends. Now, this is another moment where he misses his former guild mates, and this one's a little bit more effective to me because he's watching Shoutier, and I think it's Shoutier and Albedo. It may not be Albedo, but it's Shoutier and somebody bickering back and forth. And when they're doing this, he's literally imagining the creators bickering amongst each other because they used to do that all the time, and it's just with the music and with him imagining his friend, he reaches out for them, in that moment, not realizing that he can't touch them. And it's an actual sad moment that's just done very well in a show that otherwise doesn't really have moments like that. Next up is Sebas saves Toire. Now, as I mentioned before, Sebas saves Toire from the brothel that she was being enslaved in as a prostitute. And basically what happens is the guy who runs the brothel for the criminal organization, Eight Fingers, throws her out literally like garbage, like in a bag. And as Sebas walks by, she reaches out for him and grabs the cuff of his pants. And he decides to help her because, as I mentioned before, the creator Touch Me, who created him, had a strong sense of justice. So Sebas has a strong sense of justice. And he always lives, and in the anime, his credo is saving someone in trouble is always the right thing to do. Now, in the light novels, it was those who do not protect the weak are not truly strong. So, slight difference in interpretation, but he saves Toire because he feels the same sense of justice that his creator did. Next up, we have Eins test Sebas. Now, I put this in here because the moment itself is pretty good. Like the whole thing. They're afraid Sebas has gone outside the interests of Nazarique, so Pandora's actor, disguised as Lord Eins, shows up to test him and basically tells him, "I want you to kill Toire to show your allegiance." And Sebas says, "Surely there must be something else we can do." And he says, don't tell me. And he said, I promise you this will never happen again. I'm loyal to you. And Pandora's actor says, show me in actions, not words. So Sebas winds up to kill her with his fist attack. And Tuare just kind of sits back with a smile and accepts it because she has romantic feelings for Sebas because Sebas saved her from this life that she led. I mean, when he saves her, that's another emotional moment that's just not found rest in the anime, to the point where they save her, they heal her, they feed her, and after she's done eating, she starts crying, and Sebas assures her that no one can hurt her anymore, that he would protect her, that nothing else could happen. And she starts bawling her eyes out, saying things like, why didn't anybody help me? Things like that. And it's just, so to see her sit back and smile as Sebas does this is pretty amazing moment for the show. But luckily, Cochitis, who was instructed to stop it from actually happening, catches the punch because he is exceptionally strong and able to do so. And that way, Sebas proved his loyalty and Tuare gets to live. So basically what ends up happening is Eins agrees to have Tuare become a maid for the tomb of Nazarique, even though she's human. And in the light novel, she ends up becoming in the running for head maid of the whole tomb. So things kind of work out for her. Then I have Sebas saves Tuare again, and I put this in here because the story arc is when they go to attack the Six Arms, and Sebas fights all the warriors from the Six Arms, and quite literally kills them all within like 5 seconds. Like, it's not even close. And he even said when he confronts them, he confronts all of them but the leader at first, and he says, if you all attack me at once, he's like, you may last 10 seconds, but I doubt it. And then Davinrock, the undead king, introduces himself as such, and this enrages Sebas to the point where you can see that he's physically upset. And basically because he considers it an insult to Lord Eins, who is an undead, and so therefore he literally, when he lashes out against Davinrock, he says, you are not worthy of that title. Only one is truly worthy of the title of the King of the Undead. Next, we have Nazarique's Day Off. Now, this is an episode, not just a particular moment, but this whole episode is great because it's the only episode of the show that I can truly call a filler episode, but it's done right. Like, you get to see characters that you don't normally see. You get to see Mare, Shaltir, and Albedo interacting because he orders all the floor guardians to take a day off and have leisure time. So Albedo, Albedo, Aura, and Shaltir have leisure time together, and they don't really know what to do because they've never had time. They don't really take time off like that. So, and this is also when you find out that Albedo, even though she's a succubus, is actually a virgin. And I found it hilarious because even Aura's like, but aren't you a succubus? And kind of starts chuckling at her. And she's like, I always work so much, I don't have time for men, I guess. And then, of course, you find out that Shaltir is bi because that's like a vampire thing from like long time ago movies. And yeah. And then I have on here Forsyth fights Einzelgone, and this is the culmination of all the thieves breaking into the tomb. He personally takes on the team members of Forsyth, and of course they stand no chance whatsoever, but they don't know that. And this culminates to what's possibly my favorite moment in the entire show, which is when Arche goes to detect how strong Eins' magic is. He's wearing a ring that blocks it. So she says, he's bluffing. I'm not. And he says, well, what makes you say that? And then she says, well, I'm not detecting any magical ability from you whatsoever. And he says, oh, you're using detecting magic. He's like, here, try again. And he takes her ring off. And as soon as she looks, she immediately vomits on the floor. Like, I don't know why, but I thought that was the funniest thing. Because she, like I said, as soon as she reads it, bleh, like, it's just crazy. And, of course, she immediately says that they need to leave because they have no chance of winning, that he will kill them all. And of course he does. And then last but not least, my last favorite moment in the show currently is Eins defeats Gazeth and the Reestes army. Now, at the end of season 3, the Reestes army takes on the Baharuth Empire, and Eins personally goes to the battlefield to take on these people, and he casts a mass spell that kills, I think it's like 15,000 people at once or something ridiculous like that. Like, it's absolutely insane. And then summons these giant goat-like weird creatures with several mouths, and they start killing everybody else. And then he has a personal duel with Gazeth and he doesn't really want to do this because he respects Gazeth so much. They're not friends, but he respects him as a warrior and as a man. So, and he tells him that he would, if he agrees to serve him, that he doesn't want to do this, to come to his side, and Gazeth says, no, I fight for the king, and, he's not going to change his mind. So he, in one fell swoop, with one move, kills Gazeth Stronov. Gazeth didn't even land a single blow. And he even offers to resurrect him because he respects him that much. But Brain Unglaus and Klein declined this offer, saying that Gazeth would have rather died on the battlefield than be subjugated by Eins Ulgon. And out of respect for Gazeth, what he feels like he really would have wished, he just kind of accepts it, and it goes from there. So there you have it, you guys. A more in-depth look at Overlord, the anime series. I really hope you enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe. If there's anything watching this, if there's anything you thought I got wrong or something I didn't mention before that you thought was worth mentioning, please leave a comment below. Thanks for coming again. And next time on my channel, we're gonna start back up where I left off 9 months ago with my top 10 favorite Kolchak the Night Stalker episodes. So be ready to go back to 1975, guys. And as always, I'll see you guys. Same nerd time, same nerd channel. Have a good evening.